Think about the most creative person you know. Maybe it is someone you admire. Maybe it is someone famous. Maybe it is you. Now think about how they did in school. Chances are the answer is not great, and that is not a coincidence because the research is clear. The brain built for creativity is almost perfectly designed to fail in a classroom, and the brain built to succeed in a classroom is almost perfectly designed to avoid creativity. These two things are not just different, they actively fight each other, and most of us were never told that. Let's start with what school actually measures. When a teacher asks a question, there is one correct answer, maybe two. The student who finds that answer fastest gets the highest mark. The student who finds a different answer, even a better one, gets it wrong. This is called convergent thinking. Your brain narrows down all possibilities until it finds the one expected answer. It is useful, but it is the opposite of creativity. Creativity runs on something called divergent thinking. Your brain does not narrow down. It explodes outward. It makes connections between things that have no obvious relationship. It asks what if instead of what is. It breaks rules instead of following them. It produces 10 answers when the question only asked for one. In a classroom, divergent thinking is not rewarded. It is corrected. In the 1960s, psychologist E. Paul Torrance spent years testing creativity in children. He developed what became known as the Torrance tests of creative thinking, and he made a discovery that nobody in education wanted to hear. Creativity scores and academic grades had almost no correlation. The highest scoring creative thinkers were consistently average or below average students, and the highest academic achievers were consistently average or below average in creative thinking. The students acing every test were not the most creative. They were the most compliant, and here is where it gets darker. Torrance tested the same children multiple times as they grew up. At age 5, children score extraordinarily high on divergent thinking tests, almost all of them. Then they start school. By age 10, the scores begin dropping. By age 15, they have dropped significantly. By adulthood, the average divergent thinking score is a fraction of what it was at age 5. School does not just fail to develop creativity, it systematically reduces it. Year by year, grade by grade, test by test. Think about what happens to a creative child in a classroom. They finish the assigned work and start drawing on the margins. They ask questions the teacher did not plan for. They solve problems in ways that are technically correct, but not the expected method. They get distracted because their brain keeps making connections to things outside the lesson. Every single one of these behaviors is punished. Sit still, stay on task, do it the way I showed you. Stop asking questions we do not have time for. The message the creative brain receives every single day is simple. The way your mind works is wrong, and the brain listens, because the brain is designed to adapt to its environment. A child who is corrected enough times learns to suppress the impulse. They learn to give the expected answer instead of the true one. They learn to stay inside the lines. And slowly, the creative connections that fired naturally start firing less. Not because the creativity is gone, because the brain learned it was dangerous to express it. Now think about who built the things you use every single day. Steve Jobs dropped out of Reed College after one semester. Richard Branson left school at 16 with almost no qualifications. Walt Disney dropped out of high school. Quentin Tarantino never went to film school. Picasso described his formal art education as suffocating. These are not exceptions. Research by Scott Barry Kaufman at Columbia University found that highly creative achievers across art, science, business, and technology consistently share one biographical detail: a difficult or disengaged relationship with formal education. Not because they were less intelligent, because their brains were running a different operating system than the one school was designed for. Here is the part that should make you angry. In 2010, IBM surveyed 1,500 CEOs across 33 industries in 60 countries. They asked one question: what is the single most important leadership quality for the future? The number one answer was not intelligence, not work ethic, not technical skill. It was creativity, the quality that school systems around the world spend 12 years systematically reducing in children. The most important thing employers want is the thing education actively trains out of you. And it gets stranger. Neuroscientists studying the brains of highly creative people found something unexpected. Creative brains are not more active than average brains. brains. They are less filtered. The average brain has a strong filtering system that screens out irrelevant information and unusual connections. It keeps thinking neat and organized and efficient. The creative brain has a weaker filter. More information gets through, more connections get made, more unusual combinations get noticed. In a quiet room alone with a problem, this is an extraordinary advantage. In a classroom being evaluated on speed and accuracy, it looks exactly like distraction and disorganization. The same brain, two completely different environments, two completely different outcomes. There is a woman named Temple Grandin. She is one of the most important scientists in animal behavior in history. Her designs for livestock handling systems are used across the world. She thinks entirely in picture, not words, not concepts, images. When she was in school, this made her nearly impossible to teach using standard methods. She was considered severely learning disabled. Today, she is a professor at Colorado State University and one of the most cited researchers in her field. The disability was never in her brain. It was in the mismatch between her brain and the system evaluating it. Here is what this means for you. If you struggled in school, you were not broken. You were not lazy. You were not less intelligent than the students around you. You may have been running a brain that was simply incompatible with the environment you were placed in. A brain built to make unusual connections in a system that only rewarded expected ones. A brain built to ask questions in a system that only rewarded answers. A brain built to explore in a system that only rewarded compliance. The most creative people were the worst students, not despite their creativity, because of it. And every time a teacher marked them wrong for thinking differently, the system was not correcting a mistake, it was correcting a mind. The grade you got in school measured one thing: how well your brain matched what the system expected. It said nothing about what your brain could build, nothing about what it could imagine, nothing about what it could change. Some of the most important things ever created were made by people who sat in classrooms feeling like something was wrong with them. Nothing was wrong with them. They just could not fit their brain into a box that was never built for it.